seems like sleep is pretty dominant in the research now as like one of the major health-related behaviors. It affects movement from two different perspectives. One, if we're not getting enough sleep, it can make our performance drop a little bit, where like if you look at either speed, but a lot of times it's more like accuracy. So from a standpoint of, you might not recognize it if the task isn't too specific, but it could be more just that like once you start comparing people who have had sleep and had ample sleep to those who haven't, you really see that there is a drop in performance from an accuracy standpoint. And then also if you were just kind of like looking at endurance, strength, you might have ample strength, but compared to what your performance would be if you had a better night's sleep, it seems pretty obvious that there's a difference. I think one of the major things that you see with the sleep research that gets underestimated too is that chronic pain tends to be more sensitized, or it lasts longer, and the pain tends to be more notable when you're not getting good sleep for a long period of time, which then leads into sort of this vicious cycle of when you're in pain, hard to get as good a sleep as you did, but it actually leads to more sensitivity of the pain. But it also speaks to the idea that a lot of times like people are searching for this sort of mechanical diagnosis of what's wrong with me from a pain standpoint, what's broken inside of me. But when you look at the research on sleep, you actually start to notice that how someone sleeps is oftentimes more important than what an MRI or an X-ray shows. So just another piece of the puzzle showing that pain is so much more than just what an X-ray or MRI shows. It's so much more than just the idea of damage in the body, but it's so much about the whole experience of what's threatening in the body. And when we're not sleeping well, the whole threat response in our body is just elevated on a regular basis. So that makes us maybe some good at some things acutely. We can kind of adrenalize ourselves into getting through the day. But if you're asking for us to focus for a long period of time, it's going to be very hard without sleep. If you're asking to go at the highest potential of your strength, your speed, your endurance, it's going to be very hard to do without sleep. And I think a lot of times we don't even notice it because we can make it through. But when we start comparing some numbers when we're getting better sleep versus when we're not, it becomes quite obvious. When you're not getting enough sleep, it affects your movement, but doesn't mean it's not good to move in those circumstances, because as you move more, as you exercise more, it's definitely one of those things that seems to really improve your sleep too. This is another reason that what we do as physical therapists, we're trying to really promote the idea of finding a movement practice that is safe for you in any moment in time, because it tends to make everything better. But it has to be safe for that person in that moment. So if we can get somebody exercising in a way that they feel comfortable with, then that can actually start to get them out of this vicious cycle of having worse sleep. It can start to get their sleep a little bit better, and then all of a sudden now their performance with their movement improves, and then it becomes more of a positive cycle as opposed to the other way around.